A draw between Wales and Argentina after watching kind of successive 50 plus point games. New Zealand and Fiji, the British and Irish Lions and the Sharks, and what's the other one I've seen? Ireland over the US. I haven't yet watched Canada and England, but I'm pretty sure that's going to go down the same route. 20 points apiece between Wales and Argentina. The police helicopter is flying around my house at the moment. If you can hear the sound of rotor blades, I didn't nick anything, not that I know of. But yeah, 20 points apiece. It's a weird one where I'm not sure how either side will feel about this. Obviously, neither will be that satisfied. Argentina did get a red card during this game, so they will likely be relatively satisfied that they managed to get a draw away from home despite playing the majority of the game with a man down. But likewise, they'll be frustrated to blow the lead that they had. Wales will be looking at it maybe that they've played a pretty top level Argentina team despite missing their own British and Irish Lions players and didn't get beaten. But again, on the flip side, you had a man advantage for the majority of the game and you weren't really able to generate a whole heap of try-scoring opportunities. So anyway, no one's going to be happy with this one. It is a draw, but hopefully these guys get a chance to go at it in a week's time and we will see how that one goes. It was technically a home game for the Argentinians. You could tell by the markings on the pitch and using an Argentinian ball and whatnot, but obviously they were playing in Wales, so for all intents and purposes, it's obviously an away game. Don't often see Imperial on the pitch, though, in Cardiff. Helter-skelter start early. Wainwright was looking his athletic best, trying to make some runs. Amos, likewise, was busy. Wales won the first scrum penalty and had a chance to attack. They opt for a 3, but they missed. Both sides with the goal kicking let themselves down, and both sides could have won this if their goal kicking boots had been packed in their bags. 15 minutes. Argentina had a long kick. It almost went dead. Almost, but just refused to go over the dead ball line. So it's a 22 dropout for Wales, and Sheedy decides to just kind of drop it on the toe, let it go a metre, regather it, but they end up getting turned over at the breakdown. It was a pretty kind of self-inflicted wound there from Wales. I mean, obviously, if that pays off, you look like a genius. You caught the opposition by surprise, but you didn't catch them by surprise. So, 3-0 to Argentina. Wales responded with their own penalty a few minutes later, so it's 3 points apiece. Looking pretty tentative, looking like a test match, which is not a bad thing. Argentina's scrum got a penalty on 20 minutes, so maybe over the course of the game, I think Welsh scrum probably got penalised more often, but it wasn't one-sided either way. It's kind of a split contest. Argentina did manage to generate a 3-on-1, or at least a 2-on-1, but there was a forward pass in the build-up, so kind of nothing doing there. Unfortunately for Wales, Wainwright had to go off relatively early, 20-odd minutes, 22. But Turnbull came back on, and his first action of the game was to win a penalty at the breakdown. So, not a bad replacement. Different kind of player, but for sure it's a good impact that he had. 26 minutes, Argentina conceded another penalty at the breakdown, and suddenly Wales are in front 6 points to 3. From the restart, Carreras, the right winger for Argentina, he ran into Turnbull, and his tackling technique was low, which is what they're pushing in terms of the safety stuff, and I'm all for guys not getting head clashes, which we will see a bit later. But man, Carreras ran straight into Turnbull's hip, and he was out cold. Like, he was kind of correct, I think, in his tackling technique. That's the idea. You want to be getting, your cheek around the cheek area, but the hip was where he ended up, and he was out cold. Ref made the right call to pretty much stop the game immediately. Chocobares has to come on, so that's an unfortunate substitution for both sides. I think Halahola went off as well, so both sides were kind of a bit battered and bruised in this one. 27 minutes is something you very rarely see, and that referee Carly hadn't really spoken to the props or the front rowers much about the scrums being a bit messy. Usually the referees will get both front rows over and say, blah-de-blah, blah-de-blah, sort your stuff out, stop doing head-to-head, or stop moving around, or stop pushing before the contact, all that kind of stuff. But he just straight yellow cards, one prop from each side, and says, you guys can't do the job, get somebody who can. Which is a different way of doing it. I think usually giving them a telling off kind of works first, but then you could say that the front row kind of goes in one ear out the other anyway. But either way, he said it's not working, and he yellow carded one from each side. Speaking of cards, about a minute later, Malia, the fullback from Argentina, is charging after a high ball. Hardy is the man who takes it for Wales, and Malia absolutely smashes into him full throttle. Yeah, it's a huge hit, and the TMO has to have a look at that one, because it looked a touch high on first viewing, and sure enough, when you slow it down, it's pretty high. It's essentially head on head, and it doesn't matter what you're hitting the opponent's head with, because if you're hitting their head, you're doing something wrong. So Malia ends up getting red carded. They couldn't see any mitigation. I mean, Hardy was bracing, but it was hardly enough to warrant like a mitigation. He wasn't dropping a lot. He was just slightly braced. It was a matter of inches. So yeah, it's a red card for Malia. He just needs to get lower, man. Needs to get lower. He lined him up perfectly. Just get a little bit lower, and you've done your team a great bit of work. But instead, he's off for the rest of the game. So yeah, what was nuts though is that Hardy doesn't go off for an HIA. I mean, it was just head on head, slap, brutal. I know they've got medical experts looking at that kind of stuff, but you'd rather they go off for an HIA unnecessarily than the other way around. I don't know. It just seems bizarre that you can get that massive hit in the head and then they're just like, that's sweet as. No problems there. He looks all right. Anyway, so Argentina are down a man for the rest of the game, which is unfortunate. And to be fair, the TMO was a lot busier in this than any of the other games. I don't think we saw much TMO in the other games at all. A little bit. I don't think we saw any in Fiji against New Zealand. I don't think the TMO was called upon once. Maybe the TMO should have been. But anyway, this TMO was quite busy. A few minutes later, there's another TMO look at a tip tackle from Argentina. That was interesting again because there's kind of two Welsh tacklers going in on the Argentinian guy. I think it's Matera. And Hardy, who's kind of got the upper body, just lets go. And then that's the end that drops to the ground. But it's the other Welsh tackler who's kind of stuck with the legs, which are then in the air, and then kind of drops to the ground. So they rule that one's penalty only. Could have been yellow, maybe, in another game, but some refs would kind of want to even it up, at least for 10 minutes, 14 on 14, but they go with penalty only. 33 minutes, Argentina go 13 phases, they get advantage. Jonathan Davis was offside, so it's 6 points apiece. Argentina opt for the 3. Not a bad effort, seeing as they are down a man. On 37 minutes, Montoya, who's great at the breakdown, he wins a great breakdown penalty. The props come back on, so it's 14 on 15 at this point. And from that resulting penalty, Argentina kick for touch. They maul it. Montoya, the man himself, goes close. And from the next phase, Matera goes over for a try. He runs over Sheedy. Good positioning from the ref to see the grounding. And Argentina, despite being a man down, 13-6 in front. Good credit to them for that. And that's how it goes in at halftime. To double down on that, De La Fuente gets the first points of the second half. It's a scrum, it's a set play. Chocobates trucks it up. He's the first ball carrier from that scrum and then offloads in the tackle. It's a great move and it's 20 points to 6. 20 points to 6. Very good lead. They might be a man down, but on the scoreboard, that's looking pretty tidy. And Wales haven't really generated much in the way of try-scoring opportunities. So, yeah, it's looking a bit hairy. But credit to Wales, they don't let Argentina score any more points. Argentina do miss some from the boot, but they do get back into the game. Argentina kind of let them in a little bit. Kubeli kicks it out on the full, which means Wales have a line out inside the 22. Lane went close, but was denied. Second phase after a line-out move, it was good scramble defense from the Argentinians, and then Rollins on 51 minutes finally cracks the Argentinian defence. He gets a try after a long period of pressure. Lane had a big carry in the build-up again on the wrong side of the field for what was supposed to be his position. Thomas Williams, who made a good impact when he came on, he had a good pass in making up that try as well. So suddenly it's a one-score game, 20 points to 13. Argentina won a couple of penalties. They won 1 on 54 at the scrum. They opted for the 3, and Sanchez missed that one. 56 minutes, Matera had a line break on the right wing. Chip and regather, and he had a wee dive after he was kind of slightly taken out off the ball. It was just a bit of contact, but he did a proper soccer football player fall in that one. The commentator on my feed was getting a bit nuts. Like he was putting on an Italian accent, mocking Matera, saying that he's diving like an Italian football player. That was, you don't, like, your mates might say that at the pub, but yeah, the commentator was doing that on the TV. The co-commentator felt a bit awkward, I could tell. But there you go. They opted for the penalty and they missed it again. So 2 chances to go in front. And when you look at that scoreline, pretty costly. I thought Wales were on the back foot. That's the note I wrote. Extra man, but they were on the back foot at that point in the game. Argentina just didn't quite have the execution. And then again, it's a kick from Argentina that maybe shifts momentum a little bit back Wales' way. It's Moroni who kicks it out on the full. A few minutes later, we see a great kick from Tompkins into the Argentinian 22. Sanchez is desperate for it to roll out. It doesn't, so all he can do as the Welsh guys are chasing him up is just to put the boot into it to make it go into touch. So it's another chance for Wales to have a line out deep inside Argentinian territory. 5 metre line out, they maul it. They have to use it. They go 7 phases. It's a long pass to Holmes, who looks to have gone over, but the TMO has a look and they spot a knock on, but they go back for an advantage due to early infringement. There's a yellow card warning for the Argentinians. I wrote a note about the Argentinian defence immediately after that because their defence managed to hold. They turned the Welsh guys over with a maul turnover. They held up a tackler, created a maul, and didn't let the ball come out. So phenomenal defence. But then equally, Thomas Williams, man, what a nuisance he made himself. As the Argentinians had a 5 metre scrum on their own line, he wouldn't let Bruni get the ball out the back properly, and then Wales were able to get a penalty at the breakdown there. So great play from both sides to kind of make it a contest. 69 minutes, Wales with that 5 metre scrum, they get a penalty, they go again. And then on 71 minutes, Thomas Williams finally cracks through again. The Argentinian defence had been holding for ages. It's from the scrum, he steps. And his eyes sell Bertranou his opposite number. His eyes say he's going left, Thomas Williams, and then he just steps right. And Bertranou's left following where the eyes were going. So hard one to stop him from that kind of distance. He is so quick, and it's 20 points apiece. Big conversion from Jared Evans. 20 points apiece. Miotti has a chance on 73 to put Argentina back in front. Basham conceded a penalty to 43 metre kick, and he can't kick it over. Cordero knocks an up and under into touch, so it's another last kind of chance for Wales. A bit of an unforced error from Argentina. But then Wales conceded a penalty at the breakdown. Literally the last chance of the game was a very kickable penalty to Evans. The dog doesn't want to hear about this. He's a Wales fan. But yeah, that one was missed. So whilst there was ice in the veins, as the commentator put it, for the conversion to even it up, couldn't repeat the effort for the win at the death. There's a boo from the crowd as Argentina kick it out towards the death. To make it a draw, but man, they were in their own end goal, so I would have been kicking it out as well. Yeah, proper test match. As I mentioned, Argentina hamstrung by the fact they played the majority of the game with one man down, but likewise not a full-strength Wales squad without all their big guns who are in South Africa at the moment. So a really good match, and I look forward very much to seeing who comes out on top next week. The stats run meters finish with Argentina having 298, 405 to Wales. So Wales edged that area pretty comfortably. They generated 10 clean breaks to Argentina's 3, as they should, though, with the man up for as much time as they did. Turnovers 1, though. Argentina managed to win 7 at the breakdown, which is an area that Wales will be looking at with with a bit of frustration in the review during the week, I am sure. Both sides' defence, unsurprisingly, was pretty solid. Wales tackled at 90%, Argentina 87%, so both very, very classy efforts. 141 the tackles made by Argentina, so it's a big shift. 118 for Wales. Wales had more possession, 60%, more territory, 64%, but also more knock-ons, 9-4. So some of their execution let them down a little bit. I feel like at times they just couldn't find the space which you should be able to find when you've got the extra man, especially when it's a back that's off. They should have been able to kind of go wide, draw the defenders one way and then shift the other. It sounds simple when you say it, but anyway, it was what it was. Matera finishes with 58 run meters, a clean break and a defender beaten. He's the top guy for Argentina. Amos finishes with 90 run meters and he gets player of the match. 5 defenders beaten and a clean break from him. De La Fuente finishes with 14 out of 16 tackles. Good defensive shift from him. Montoya has 13 out of 14, so also good from him as well. Proper defensive shifts. But that being said, both of them for Wales, unsurprisingly, is one of the top guys with 11 from 11. 11 from 12. D also has 11 from 12. And Nicky Smith, 12 from 12. So, yeah, some proper standouts. The scrum could be a little bit better from Wales, you'd have to say. But yeah, they did well to come back, but they'll be disappointed they were behind. So, as I mentioned, I'm pretty happy with the game. I'm a neutral. A draw is fine by me for now. It just adds to the spice for next week. So, yeah, honestly, the commentary was bizarre. The commentary was really bizarre with the mocking of the Italians for flopping over at football, which I think is true, but it's weird to hear that on a rugby broadcast. And there was something else he said that was just kind of weird as well. I can't remember what it was. I thought I wrote it down, but... a comment about Jonathan Davis being hurt. Like, they thought it might have been a groin injury, and the commentator going on about it being maybe a crown jewels injury. And, the co-commentator just kind of changing the subject as quickly as she could. But anyway, there you go. 20 points apiece. Look forward to the one next week. You guys let me know your thoughts. Do you think Wales should have been able to capitalise despite the fact that it's not their full strength team with the extra man for the majority of the game? Do you think Argentina, with that lead, shouldn't have let Wales back into it? Or do you think overall a draw is a pretty fair result? Anyway, I'm going to go watch the last game of the day for me, which is England against Canada, which I'm sure will be a lot more lopsided. But anyway, you guys take care, and I will talk to you guys again soon. See you later.